Today marked the start of a summit for the world's two largest economies, the U.S. and China. It comes at a time when the U.S. faces record debt, and much of that debt is owned by China. Joining me to talk more about the relationship between the two countries, how it has evolved, is Jim Rogers, Quantum Fund co-founder and author of this book right here, A Gift to My Children, A Father's Lessons for Life and Investing. That's just one of his books. I want to thank you so much for joining us. I want to ask you, we've seen a lot of talking points coming out of the summit for today, a lot of rah-rah cooperation sound bites. What's the real story, Jim? What's the real dynamic going on between these two countries?
Well, the main problem is the United States is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world, Ms. Lister. Not just the largest debtor nation in the world, but in the history of the world. And our debts are getting deeper and deeper. The rest of the world is getting upset about it. I hope every American citizen is getting upset about it, because it's going to be the ruination of America, and anybody who's a creditor to America has to worry about it.
I don't know if Americans are all very upset about it. We see in the mainstream media press focusing on the United States pushing China to increase the value of its yuan more rapidly. I want to know if you think that that is a pressing issue, and if you think the United States has leverage to ask them to do this when the Federal Reserve has a policy of quantitative easing that devalues the dollar, and when the United States has such high debts that it expects China to finance.
Well, you make a very good point. Yes, the United States is trying to drive down the value of its currency. It's trying to debase its currency. No country in history that's had a policy of debasing its own currency has done very well in the long term or even the medium term. It sometimes works in the short term that you can revive your economy by devaluing your own money, but that's not a good policy. Now, to the Chinese, in my view, the Chinese should let their currency be freely tradable and convertible. They are a great economy now, but the idea that the U.S. is going to prosper by driving down the value of our own money is lunacy.
I want to know who you think has the upper hand in these talks, because both countries are reliant on each other to an extent. China needs the United States to buy its, cheap toys and fake Christmas trees, and it's the largest foreign market for them. At the same time, the United States needs China to finance its deficit, to finance its military budget, to finance its operations. So who has the upper hand in talks like this?
Well, of the two, I'd rather be the creditor than the debtor. Throughout history, people have always said, look over there with all that money. I want to go over there where the assets are. You've never heard people say, look at all those debtors. I want to go over there and join those debtors. I'd rather be the creditor than the debtor in any case, and certainly in this one.
At the same token, what is the dynamic? Because the United States has the exorbitant privilege, as some have called it, of printing the reserve currency.
No, I know, and that's got to come to an end. Unfortunately, and this is not Chinese policy, Chinese-American, but, America's going to have to face the problem that we are the largest debtor nation in the world, and it's getting higher and higher, and the rest of the world is starting to say, wait a minute, guys, we're not going to continue to finance this. We're not going to continue to play ball. Other countries are now looking for replacements for the U.S. dollar. There's a lot of movement, not just in China, but all over the world, because everybody knows that the U.S. dollar is now a terribly flawed currency. I don't like saying this. I'm an American citizen and American taxpayer, but we got to face facts.
When do you see there being a tipping point, and what do you see as the replacement? Because Russia and other developing nations, Brazil, have all signed on to concerns and plans of people like Joseph Stiglitz, who lobby for a different global reserve currency. So at what point do you see this actually happening, though? Because you don't see the developed world on board.
Well, I would expect to see more crises in the currency market, maybe as soon as this fall, or certainly by the fall of 2012, 2013, and you're going to see serious turmoil in the currency markets, which is going to force the world and force America to do something about it. It's not going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be terrible for all of us when you have this turmoil, but that's the way it's going to wind up, because nobody's taking any serious action except talking about it.
Okay, here's my question for you, because you spend most of your time in Singapore and you're in New York right now. You're obviously in the United States. When you come here and you talk to people and you read the American mainstream press, do you feel like people are kind of asleep on this issue? I mean, you even were challenging me, saying I was kind of asleep on this issue and that I didn't challenge my last guest properly. So I want to know what you think people are missing.
I'm actually I'm actually startled. Nay, I am stunned by how little there seems to be in the American press about it. I mean, the American press seems to be more worried about which TV star is divorcing which TV star more than anything else, when the rest of the world is sitting here very seriously concerned about the U.S. being overextended, both politically and geopolitically and militarily and economically. And yet I don't see many people in the U.S. even noticing it, much less caring about it.
And yet countries like China are still used to justify an existential threat to the United States, and for leaders to be able to push continued military spending, the United States military being the most well-financed in the world. I want to know what toll you think this is eventually going to take on the lives of average Americans who might be saying, hey, it hasn't affected me so far.
Ms. Lister, we've got wars going on in 3 different countries right now. We'd like to have wars in 4 or 5 more if we could figure out a way to do it. We've got troops stationed in 120 countries around the world that aren't doing anything except making enemies for us and costing us a staggering amount of money. This is all going to come to an end, and unfortunately, no country that's gotten itself into this kind of situation gets out of the problem without a crisis or a semi-crisis. We're rapidly, more and more rapidly approaching a crisis that's going to be bad for all of us. 2008 was bad. Well, wait till the next time around. It's going to be even worse.
Is China going to come out on top? I know in the last financial crisis, many said that they fared much better because they had a lot more control over their economy. Would they fare as well now? Some people are concerned over inflation.
Well, China does have inflation. There's no question. We have inflation in America, too. They at least acknowledge it. We lie about it. We say there is no inflation. Well, I'm sure you shop, or maybe you don't shop. Maybe your butler does your shopping. But the rest of us who shop,
chance.
we know that prices are going higher. China's got that problem, and they're trying to do something about it. We're not. We're throwing fuel on the fire. But when the crisis comes, you said, again, China was a creditor in 2008. We were a debtor. The next time around, China's going to be an even bigger creditor, and we're going to be an even bigger debtor. I mean, you know how the world works. Debtors don't have much latitude when problems arise. Creditors usually do.
And one just quick question. We saw the People's Bank of China put the yuan at a record high peg today. I'm curious if that was, one analysis that came out was this was more of a goodwill effort ahead of this summit. Is that what you think?
Well, whether it's a goodwill or not, it doesn't matter, because the facts are that China's the largest creditor in the world and America's the largest debtor. The renminbi is going to go higher and higher and higher over the next decade. There's not much anybody can do about it, including China or including America. It is happening. It has been happening for 6 years now. They have been opening their currency more and more, and it's going to continue to open more and more, and it's going to go higher. Don't sell your renminbi, Miss Lister.
Well, I know you're long on it, aren't you? So are you still betting on China?
I certainly do. I certainly do own the renminbi, and whenever I can, I buy more. It's not that easy. You can't just pick up the phone and buy a lot of renminbi, but there are legal ways to do it, and wherever I get the chance, I buy more renminbi.
All right. Well, there's our investing advice for the day. I want to thank you so much for being with us. That was Jim Rogers, co-founder of Quantum Fund and author of Gift to My Children, among other books. Thank you so much.